It's just been a feeling of relief having this property we're not having to deal with it anymore. We finally got it sold. We can finally do our podcast and talk about it from A to Z on what went wrong here. But I think we're just happy for it to be over with, man.
Yeah.
Oh,
this is dragged out for 3 years.
Damn near
almost 3 years. Well, we bought it in October 8th, 2020. And welcome back to the Pursuit of Property podcast. Today, Kate and I are talking about kind of our biggest loss. I think our biggest mistake that we've made in the business so far when it comes to actual financial repercussions. Yeah, I know.
I want to say the biggest feeling, and I think I can speak for you, is not kicking ourselves in the ass. It's just been a feeling of relief having this property we're not having to deal with it anymore. We finally got it sold. We can finally do our podcast and talk about it from A to Z on what went wrong here. But I think we're just happy for it to be over with, man.
Yeah.
Oh,
this is dragged out for 3 years.
Damn near
almost 3 years. Well, we bought it in October 8th, 2020. And let's just start from the start. So if you're listening to the podcast and you have access to Zillow, you can look up 517 Studebaker Street in South Bend, Indiana.
Haunted, bro.
That thing is tough. We bought this as part of a package of 5 homes. For context, we had just purchased a package of 4 homes in September, the end of September, and we felt really good about that 4-pack that we purchased. And I think that's where we can get off with the right start on.
Yeah. So we purchased, again, I know we've talked a little bit about this in context back in season 3 when we did our whole season on out-of-state investing. I think we did it right on our 4-pack. Yeah. And to recap, we did our home inspection. We bought those deals off Zillow at a discount, but numbers penciled out. Those ones looked really, really good. And I think we were running on this high of just buying 4 properties, and we had this 5-pack come across our desk, kind of a pocket listing kind of a deal. Agents were still involved, but it wasn't directly listed on the MLS yet. And we were like, dude, let's do it. We just bought 4. These ones, similar price point. Let's just do it, dude. We don't need inspections. Let's borrow the money. Let's close these ones out and let's freaking get to 9 units. We're close to double digits. Boom. Let's do it.
Yeah, that was our first mistake. Ego.
Yeah.
It's freaking dumb. Looking back, I bet we're going to have moments in the future looking back what we're doing right now, and we're going to say we were dumb. But dang, I'm really glad that we did what we did on the first units, because if we had done no inspections, jumped full force into our first deal, we would have probably made the same mistakes and we'd probably be kicking ourselves about all of our houses.
Yeah.
But I can say now with confidence that we're down to 5.
Yeah, and it's not a coincidence. From that 5-pack, we've sold off 4. We only have 1 left.
And we kept 4 out of 4 of our first pack. And they've been great. But, I think letting the ego get to our head, I think the
hype.
I guess, and the social hype of it too. We were getting a ton of credit from the guys that we really liked. Like, dude, good job going and buying rentals. Like, you're thinking long term. And I think... they were pumping us up because they knew we did it the right way. Yeah. And then for us to just jump headfirst in the next set, it was a life lesson that always run the numbers meticulously and don't jump just because the numbers look good at the start.
Yeah. And always, I think it always just comes down to 2 words: due diligence. Do your freaking due diligence.
There were warning signs. Do you think about how many warning signs there were? With the first pack, we had some headaches where tenants were a little difficult. The second pack of homes we bought, we were in South Bend, Indiana, and we couldn't get access to any except one.
Which was this
one. And when we walked this one, we said, oh my gosh, this is in so much worse shape than the other pack that we purchased. So
Yeah.
definitely red flags were raising. We should have canceled. We should have been okay with losing our earnest money if we had to. Looking back, there's no way we would have lost as much as money as we just lost. But
We even had, correct me if I'm wrong,
we got a price reduction.
the seller, obviously the seller had an agent representing them. We were working with our buyer's agent. The seller had a reputation in South Bend for being a slumlord. Like, he had that reputation. Our buyer's agent, Jen, was telling us, like, yeah, I know this guy. We've seen him pop up before.
I'm not about trash talking people, but I'm gonna put it out there. Fuck Way, dude. Way, if you're listening to this podcast, bro, you screwed us for no reason. It was our mistake. We bit the apple, but bro, I'll tell you what, Way, I want you to know, we know your name. All right. Back to business. So here's where we're at. We bought the 5 units. In escrow, we tried to negotiate Warren to be not part of the package. This was a huge house filled with squatters.
5-bedroom.
Terrible home. Tons of problems. We sold Warren right away. It was a problem property. We lost a grand total when we did all of our math. We were very diligent in accounting because we were like, oh, we finally lost money. Boo-hoo. We lost $30 or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
less than 100.
I remember we signed at the dotted line. We had our private lender come in. They signed with us with the notary, and we said we lost money. And they said how much? And we said $30, and we all laughed, right? And we said, we lost money, right? We broke the streak. Okay, fast forward. We get Studebaker. We walk the property. Property is thrashed. It's filled with stuff. The person living in the home is clearly on drugs, right? Clearly on real issues.
Yes.
One of the things I remember from that walkthrough was we went in the attic. And when we looked in the attic, it was so trashed. Like, the roof, you could see out, which in South Bend, there's a lot of rain and snow. You can't have that. And I remember us saying, okay, we have a lot of work on this house. But the tenant was paying fairly on time at the start.
Yeah.
And slowly but surely, after we had closed, this tenant started falling behind and started becoming a problem. But that wasn't really what led to us needing to sell.
No.
You want to explain that?
Yeah. As the first couple months go by, you're right. We are getting paid in full, although the rent is very low.
I think it was $700.
Yeah, something like that. We're getting paid in full the first couple months, but then issues start to pop up with the city of South Bend, with code enforcement.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out the code enforcement department over in South Bend.
What's his name, Jim? He was the guy who's super reasonable who came by most recently.
The one guy, yes, that we did have.
Shout out Jim.
pleasantries with. So code enforcement and what's called the RSVP office out in South Bend.
RSVP was like residential verification.
Yeah, so more focused on rentals specifically.
And making sure that they're in good shape. So I kid you not, I haven't counted the notices. I'm sure if we went in our email between our old property management and new, we received, I kid you not, probably at least between 30 and 50 pieces of mail alone just from code enforcement in this RSVP office with issues that were going on outside and inside the property. So again, here's kind of what happened was this house was decrepit, right? And we kept talking to the tenant, you have to keep up with not putting trash outside. You can't just leave trash outside, right? Well, we ended up getting a name because somebody was dumping stuff in the alleyway. Is this the right house or is this a different house?
No, it's the right house.
And we ended up having to clean up the alleyway. And slowly but surely, code enforcement decided, okay, let's inspect more of the house. And so one day we got a notice to inspect. And for full disclosure, I think you and I can agree that we actually appreciate having property walkthroughs. Like, it doesn't hurt our feelings. We, by no means, want to be slumlords. And we have tenants like this tenant who we couldn't kick out easily. And so we had to live with the fact that we inherited a bad house. But typically we try to keep our houses up, right? We by no means want to make people live in a bad situation.
And to clarify, our intent with not only purchasing this property, but all 9 that we purchased, we knew we were purchasing distressed property. And our goal was to go in there, rehab and renovate and fix up the property to really, really, really good high-end rental standards, and obviously increase the rent, but increase the standard of living in all of these homes. That was our primary goal.
Right.
We knew we were buying these in distressed shape.
You know, we were fine with the idea of the city getting into the house, because to us, it's like, well, we're going to have to fix this stuff anyways. They're going to make a list for us, and, you know, they're going to give us a timeline, and there's a couple annoying things, but it wasn't the end of the world.
No.
But then we get the letter, right? And we get a piece of mail, and it was like a notice of emergency repairs from the RSVP office. And the emergency repairs, the first item listed was the roof.
Brand new roof replacement needed.
And that was like a kick right in the pants. And we were like, oh gosh, that's expensive. And then there were a whole bunch of little things like, you know, replace a smoke detector, cover this light switch, you know, a couple little
paneling
things.
On the outside.
Yeah, some paneling and fascia boards, cut some tree stuff.
Probably a couple grand worth of work in
maybe
total for the other stuff. Yeah, but nothing crazy.
But then this is where it got really crazy was we start sending out the letter to our property management company. And it says right on it, we will be back in 2 weeks to verify that the repairs were made. That was the big thing for us, was the timeline felt unreasonably short to do a new roof. And we were in the middle of like starting the rainy season and dealing with all that. And so we were like, okay, what are we going to do? So we sent it over and we started getting quotes. And I remember this is when I got involved, and I said, I'm going to start calling around and getting quotes myself too. And so I put out a message in our Facebook group. I looked for roofers. I called. I had them go quote the project. Everything was coming in at like 15, 18, 17,000. And we were like, we paid 20 something thousand for the house. Like, how is the roof? Like almost the whole house. And come to find out, pretty much came down to the fact that the house was built in the 1800s, and there was like 4 layers of roofing material on top of the original roof that didn't even have the OSB that we have nowadays. So it was like having a whole bunch of wood shake roof, and then on top of the wood shake there was comp shingle, and then another layer of comp shingle, and then another layer of comp shingle. So we were going to have to tear all that off, and there was structural stuff that we had to change, and we had to put it all back. And so that was tough.
And nonetheless, I think this is also where a lot of the issues started stemming from too. So we know that it's a non-negotiable. This roof has to be replaced, right? The first issues start with us, you know, when those quotes were trying to be done, just getting people out there, because at this point, the tenant starts to become aggressive.
Yeah.
They start to threaten the contractors and the handymen we are sending over to do the required repairs needed by the city to improve the standard of living in the home. They're getting threatened.
She sent the dogs on somebody.
Yeah, she set out her dogs on a couple, you know, one or a couple of the guys. I think
one of the handyman guys.
And it became just literally a bad situation where it was just almost damn near impossible for us to even get in there and do some of the repairs. And so, like you were saying, this leads to the RSVP says, hey, you've got 2 weeks to get these done before, you know, we come out and reinspect. And, you know, call us unreasonable for thinking that was too quick. I think 2 weeks is pretty freaking quick to try and get a brand new roof done and all these other critical repairs done. But here's what starts happening after that 2 weeks. We can't get everything done. Our property manager, we think, was trying to communicate this, you know, with the office and just trying to get them to work with us a little bit. But after that 2 weeks, the RSVP office, sends out a reinspection late fee. And the reinspection late fee is $250 per notice.
And so this is where it's also stupid, was that, you know, I don't think we're unreasonable. When you have a quote for a roof come in at $17,000, I think it's reasonable for the landlords to be given time to go get other quotes. And we had active correspondence with the city at this point. We were actively talking with them. At least that's our understanding. Again, when you hire a property manager, you're not the person talking.
Yes.
You have somebody on your behalf telling them. And we signed the roof, but the roof workers were busy, right? So we were on the list. And then, like what you mentioned, we're sending people out and we can't literally get access to the house. This woman is literally threatening them. I remember one of the contractors we had was a recovered drug addict.
Yeah, recovering.
And he went to the property and he called the manager and said, I can't go back. They're doing drugs and I'm not willing to relapse to do this project. And we both felt that was a completely reasonable thing to do. And we were like, you know what? Like, this is really out of hand.
That was the situation in the first place for him. But the tenant... Yeah.
And so at this point, we know that the tenant's doing drugs. We know that the house is in serious disarray and that the city's fining us. So what we ended up considering was like, okay, we signed the roof bid, which was $15,000, just shy of $15,000.
Yes.
And the roofer went out. And that even went up. I mean, I think when we actually wrapped up the roof, we got an invoice for like $18,000. And we called our property manager and we're like, hey, like the roofer can't just go increase this bid by this much. Like, he knew he was doing a whole tear off and redo the whole roof. Like, what possibly could he have not quoted for? And we ended up working with the manager to resolve that. But then we still had those outstanding other issues. And so we said, well, we got the roof done. Can you tell the city that we did the roof and that the tenant's literally fighting us? We have to evict her. We can't get in there. And that's when we were told, okay, ignore the notices, these $250 late fees, because we've talked to the city and they understand we're evicting them and that this is all just automated.
Yeah.
Let me clarify. I'm not speaking out my ass. I have a screenshot of the email on my desktop because I don't want anybody later to think that there was a mistake or mischaracterization. But we were told explicitly that we can now ignore these notices. Otherwise, the rest of the story won't make sense.
Yeah, we were, and this is where I think another lesson learned for you landlords out there or potential landlords is not only doing your due diligence with, interviewing your team. And by your team, I mean the agent or agents you're going to be working with, the property manager you end up deciding, the handyman and the contractors you end up using. There needs to be an extreme vetting process there. And because your team is an extension of you, especially if you're owning out-of-state property, you're living, states and states and states away. You need the right people on your team. And I think we could have done a better job of just trying to check in and be on top of it best we could. Yeah. But you're right. Our understanding was we were told, hey, we're communicating with the city. These notices that we keep on receiving, by the way, with updated dates. Hey, $250 late fee, reinspection needed to be done by this date. These notices keep coming in, but I'm literally taking them because they're coming to my personal home and I'm throwing them in the trash as we get them because we're told, hey, ignore it. We're going through this eviction and we're going to keep moving forward. And I want to try and pull up the email of how often these notices come in, right? So we have some of them twice a week. These $250 late fee notices coming in sometimes multiple times per week. One on a Monday and another one on a Thursday, right? Like, these are coming in pretty consistently. And like I said, we're just taking them and throwing them away because we're going through this eviction.
In retrospect, I think the learning lesson on this section is that, like, you can have a property manager that you trust, but if your gut is telling you that this is off, it's not a waste of time to verify. I think
but verify.
You and I were sitting there and we were like, they told us that they have it. There's no reason for us to think that they don't have it. They've never messed up on something like this before. But then we were still getting it. And we were like, it would really suck if this was real. And that was like Chekhov's gun. It was like sitting on the mantle. And we knew eventually we were going to get shot, but we just didn't know when. Yeah. And, as time went on, property management really was overgrown and they were doing a lot of other things.
Yeah.
And like, just being completely frank, like, we are not a huge, client. It's not like they're making a ton of money on us. And so, admittedly, it was like at the end, like, hey, we're focused on doing these big things. Like, you guys are really focused on keeping these properties. Like, let's find a way to hand you off to the next property manager, right?
Yep.
And they were really cool on the handoff, and everything so far kind of has gone well there.
Yeah.
But this was really one of the big mistakes that was made, and we didn't know about it until the eviction wrapped up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, we have the eviction wrap up, but our thinking at this point was, one, we had already come out of our own pockets and written a check for, at that point,
15 grand.
A piece. We're
Oh,
close.
no, we were at 20 something because the roof wasn't the only thing.
Yeah. So we're close to $10,000 out of pocket. You and I had to write a check for up until this point into the property. And it really had not been rehabbed at all, right? I mean, there's a new roof, but the renovations on the inside had not happened.
Like,
and we're like,
we got a quote.
We're
remember?
like, look, yeah, we don't have another, 10, 15 grand each to write a check for and renovate this property. We're just going to offload it. We're going to try and cut our losses and get it sold. So I think we had it listed. We threw it up as soon as the eviction was done. January of this year? December, right before the new year. So she gets out. We throw Studebaker up on the market.
Before you get any further, we paid for an attorney, right? So the attorney was like $1,000. So now we're 21,000.
Yeah.
Continue.
And she ends up getting out, and the transition's happening to the new property manager. And this is where kind of the curtains are uncovered. And because in this transition, because this house was listed, it was not going to be under the management of the new property manager. So Scott and you and I had to step in.
I think we missed a major thing. We were going to sell Studebaker with Poland and O'Brien.
Oh my!
We were
gosh.
in escrow to sell this Studebaker property, and the only reason we couldn't sell it was we needed to have the tenant out, and we had an offer of $41,000 for this house, and we took too long to get the tenant out. We allowed the buyer to buy the other two homes that were part of the package, and then we got left with Studebaker empty, and we called the buyer back, and it was too late. He already was moved on.
Well, right? Oh,
he made an offer.
Right. He made an offer. Okay. Oh my gosh.
See, I don't know if you guys can tell. This is trauma.
We're dumber than we thought. Okay. You're right. We had 3 of these 5 properties being sold in a pack to the same buyer.
While you're talking, I'm going to pull it up.
And we had 2 of the properties they sold, right? Because this tenant wasn't getting out in time. So this Studebaker, which was part of those 3 properties being sold, stays back. We get the tenant out, and the buyer is still interested. And he goes, I will pay you guys $40,000. All you guys have to do is do a complete trash out and clean out of the property. $40,000.
Yep,
and you guys have to pay for the clean out. And Dumb and Dumber over here behind the mics talk, and we're like,
it's worth more than that.
No.
It's got a brand new roof, $20,000 roof.
That's literally what we told our agent. We were like, look, it's got a brand new roof, $40,000, and we have to pay for the complete trash out and clean out. Yeah, no, tell your guy to kick rocks.
If that buyer is listening to this podcast, we are so sorry that we did not sell this house to you, and we really hope that you made a lot of money on the other two. But we should have sold you this house for that price. So we turned it all down because this is a great learning lesson for any investor or seller. If you know that your product is bad,
don't be greedy.
Do not be greedy. Cut ties early, or you will ride the market down to your grave. That's what we did. If we had sold it for 40, we would have made money.
Or we would have been close to even.
Very close.
Very close to even.
So we turned that down. We listed the home sometime in November. I looked it up. And then we had that for sale, and we opened escrow. Do you remember this? We got an offer. We opened escrow, and this is when the curtains were unveiled. Early January.
Yeah.
We had just transferred property management. We get into escrow, and we start pulling the prelim. Cade and I, because we are selling it, reach out to the RSVP office to figure out what do we owe the RSVP office and what needs to be done so we can sell it.
Because we knew at bare minimum, we owed the original $250 late inspection fee. Right? At bare minimum, but...
And we call, and they send us an email with a bill for $6,000. That's 24 notices. And the notice, I guess, is that, hey, your property manager told us you were trying to get into it, but that doesn't stop it. You had to sign a vacant rental agreement, but we couldn't do that until the house was vacant. So even then, we would have had months of $250 racking up. Mm-hmm. So at this point, Dumb and Dumber again behind the mics, we decided we'll use a little charisma and we'll call the city and we're going to tell them the story and we're going to hope that they give us a little help. That was not what happened at all. We got on the phone. They said, there is no ifs, ands, or buts. We do not negotiate. It's $6,000. You owe it. There's no way of getting out of it. Here's your denial request from earlier last year, which I would have liked to have seen, by the way. And so at that point, we say, okay, well, we owe $6,000. We're just going to pay it. We're going to sell this house in January and be done. And then the buyer never submitted their earnest money deposit and they just walked away from the deal. They just said, nope, they weren't interested. And then we proceeded to reach out to our agent and we sat on the market 2 more months, completely dead. Not even a showing. So we price reduce. And at this point, we know that we're negative and we finally get an offer. It was funny because that day we texted our agent and we said, hey, do we need to price reduce? And she goes, yeah, we probably should price reduce. We're really getting almost no activity, maybe 1 a week. And then minutes later, she got an offer. And she was like, hey, speak of the devil, look at this. Within minutes, we ran the numbers and we said, we are going to lose. At the close of escrow, we are going to be bringing $12,000 to the table. And you and I said, we're done. And it was kind of an odd moment. It was we went from being the investor who buys the home from sellers who need to sell to now we're the ones that are dumping the house. And this investor is probably going to make money. And I'm happy for them. Yeah. But it was wow. Immediately you and I said, we are willing to pay $12,000 to be done with Studebaker.
This was, and this was due because we bought the property for $31,000 way back when in 2020. After all the money we already had to dump into it and the invoices we owed $6,000 to the RSVP office and this, that, and the other, the buyer ended up buying it for less than what we bought it for. Even with the new roof, even with all this X, Y, and Z, they ended up buying it for $30,000. So not only did we have to come in with, a little bit of the cash to pay back.
We paid 27 something, but we over borrowed. So
we did
paid
over borrow.
27.5, but we borrowed 31,000.
So we were into that property 31,000 up front. You're right. So we're selling it for less than what we were initially into it for. Then we dumped in the money for the new roof. By the way, we also had almost $1,700 in late utility notices that,
chef's kiss from the client, from the tenant, a little, leave you with that.
Little cherry on top, $1,700, here late to the South Bend Municipal Utilities office. But hey, what's $1,700 when you're already losing $24,000, so.
Okay, so I'm looking, we have it on the whiteboard. Yeah. Our total cost that we could account for easily, including almost $5,000 in interest payments because we weren't making any rent. We lost on this house $27,000. We paid $27,000 for that house.
That came out of our own pockets. $27,000
over 2.5 years.
Woo! In cash. So what is that? Well, 13,500 minimum each that we had to write a check for.
That's a negative 100% ROI.
And that's a low number. That's just what we could account for easily.
Attorneys aren't in there.
Yeah, no attorney fees, no
property management fees.
Oh God! So we lost more money on this house than the house was for. Yeah.
Now, I will say that the whole time that this experience went on for 2.5 months, all we talked about was this is going to make a great podcast, because at the end of the day, I think people like seeing people win. Yeah. But some people need to know what it looks like when you lose. And as you can tell, we're sitting here laughing. Cade and I are not in a position to lose, $27,000 and have it not affect us. We went through some really, really tough conversations on how we were going to proceed. And this racked our brain for a chunk of time, especially when we first got that notice for the roof and everything.
Yeah.
But the key thing here is, like, if you're a young person and you're taking out bets, right? That's investing is really, really thought out betting, right? There's always a chance that something could go wrong. You will lose. And I think the whole time that we had these properties, we were frustrated with this one, but we've always known that there's a chance things could out of our control, right? Things that could go wrong that we can't control. And this is an example where just a lot of things went wrong that we could not control. And the things that we could control, we controlled very poorly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you made a great point. We had multiple occasions, not only with the roof, but also when we're getting this property sold, where us as young guys, we had to put our big boy pants on. No one else was coming in to cut the check. No one else was coming in to pay the money that needed to be paid. We had to put our big boy pants on and cut multiple checks for thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that, quite frankly, we couldn't afford to cut, but we cut anyway.
We figured out a way. And it goes out being said, the whole time, our lender did not have a single hiccup in payments. When we sold the house, that lender was not concerned in the slightest that they would not get paid.
And they did get paid back in full.
And they got paid back in full. And with interest, they were pumped because they were making a lot of returns.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, we took out a risk. We always tell everybody that the way that you handle these reactions is really, that's what makes or breaks a good business person. And at the end of the day, man, like, everybody's going to lose. Like, there's going to be a deal that you lose money on. And I'm glad that we only lost $27,000,
Could have been worse. Can always be worse.
I went to the meetup, and there's that guy, and he's selling, a couple million in losses right now. I'm really glad I'm not there. I'm magnitudes lower. Mm-hmm. But there are people in my friend group who would not comprehend losing $27,000 and not letting it just be the worst thing that's ever happened.
Yeah.
And it also doesn't make me feel like it was a bad experience. We learned a lot. We still have some property. It enlightened us on needing to change property management, which will save us money, hopefully. And, the lessons that we can pass along to other people right now is also key.
Yeah, I think moving forward, because both of our goals are to continue buying more and more and more and more rental properties. I think we both have a really, really good understanding of not only deal analyzing, but going in before buying a rental property. I think we are in a much, much better spot now than we were when we bought those 9. And yes, we may have lost, $30,000 plus bucks on this property, but I guarantee you, the way we know how to analyze deals, how to go about buying a rental property, what goes into the management, all of the lessons that, we learned is going to save us more than that in the long run. And so now that we have got a good sense of, what we want to go out and buy, how to buy it, how to buy the right things, like you said, it's kind of, it's a feeling of kind of like tranquility. It's like, we lost, but what are we going to do now? We're going to take it, we're going to learn from it, and we're going to go and we're going to keep buying a shit ton of property.
Also, the lender that gave us the money for those deals has so much more confidence now. It's really easy to pay back a lender when you're winning. It's a lot harder to pay back a lender when you're losing. And, for that lender and all the people that are, friends with that lender, for them to not have to even think that there was ever a moment where they wouldn't be made whole, that's a great thing. Like, at the end of the day, our reputation precedes us. And I'd rather bring $12,000 to the table and be done with it and have the seller or the buyer make money and pay off any debts and just walk away and feel good about how I handled it, than screw over people and try to not lose a couple grand.
Yeah.
Like, you make money, you save money in this business, and you plan that there's going to be a rainy day. And when the rainy day comes, you have money saved for it, right?
Yeah, the relationship being key. I mean, we just, I'm sure we'll do another podcast here in the upcoming weeks. We've got a property that we bought, and lo and behold, it is the same private money lender who, you know, had these properties out there, who's also continuously doing more deals, you know, with us. And like you said, I think there is something to be said where there was never a hiccup in payments. There was never a doubt that, you know, they were going to be paid back in full, even when, you know, it was in the red and we were not winning. Right?
Yeah. Well, and then the last part to it too is that, you know, just like any person has to like train to get better, you know, I don't know why, but the example that came to mind is like, you know, the Muay Thai guys are kicking trees and shit. It's like you have to strengthen yourself before you go out to the real world and go do big things, because like if you can't handle a $27,000 loss, you're not ready to go make $1 million in investing. Like you have to take a real risk to make real money. And, you know, if $27,000 over 2 years is going to break you mentally, like you really can't go do the things that these other guys on Instagram are posting about.
No.
You know, all these guys that we know, they've taken losses. And, you know, you take a loss, it's a punch, and you just got to move on and keep going. And again, like what we said, you save money and you're happy when you get wins, and how you handle the losses is kind of how people are going to decide if they're going to work with you.
Growing pains of being an investor and investing in rental properties, right? So
we bring this whole podcast up too, not to stop you from buying rentals. We're going to leave you with a couple takeaways here. When you go to buy a rental, don't get emotionally involved. It cannot be an ego decision or you'll make a mistake. 2, don't follow the hype train about doors. Get good doors. Bad doors take money away from your good doors. 3, if possible, do a home inspection. If not, at least walk the property and make sure that you can see the actual home. It means that you can account for any big problems. Like we knew that the roof was bad. We just didn't expect it to be done the way that we had to do it. Mm-hmm. So walk the property, have an idea of what you're looking for, budget for the big ticket items that you can tell are going to be coming up. 3, careful who manages your property. Be very specific about who you're talking to. Make sure that you trust but verify, and make sure that when you're verifying that you're doing everything that you can to document what was said. That's a huge thing that needs to be done. And then maybe the 5th thing, if you're gonna sell, make sure you're not greedy. If you get greedy, you're gonna lose more.
And 6, to wrap it up, I would just say be accountable. Take accountability, take responsibility. There were plenty of points in this, and granted, we did feel this way, but only, you know, it was right up front, like, you know, cussing out everything and just being really pissed off and throwing a little pity party, right? But understanding you've got to take accountability, take responsibility, take extreme ownership for what's going on, put on your big boy pants, and get it done.
I love it. Go buy some rentals, do these things, try your best to not end up on a podcast like us.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Pursuit of Property podcast. We're going to see you guys next week. We've got extra stuff coming up, and tune in next time.